This is Jordan Tower with JT News. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that hype button. Let's get right into the news. Well, before we get into new news for today, this is kind of new. This has been talked about a lot this week. Stat Quo has been talking to TDE, The Game, and everything. Talking about this Kendrick and Game issue. There's an issue with them. We knew that. Drake didn't pop. The Game did not pop out at the pop out with Kendrick Lamar, but Dre did and everybody else did. So people were really like, okay, so the West Coast doesn't mess with Game, and the West Coast is like, people in the West Coast mess with Game, but like the rappers don't. And what's funny about that is Game is the only rapper that would work with everybody. J-Rock, Kendrick, Nipsey. He did stuff with all of them when they were brand new. And that's a fact. I'll defend Game on this video because Game held the torch for LA for a good amount of years. And Dr. Dre made sure of that. Okay? Now, let's get to the issue, and then let's do the backstory. So the issue is Kendrick is in his feelings that back in the day, like 2015-16, there was a video with Drake, and there was no public beef at that time. They were just taking light shots back and forth at each other. But Drake came to Compton and did a video with The Game. And Kendrick Lamar was offended, and so was TDE, because he says, why didn't you check in? Why didn't you check in? Like, that's not cool. I'm offended by that. Like, you're just going to let Drake come to our hood and shoot a video? You know how many people have come to L.A. and shot a video in Compton with a Compton rapper? So Kendrick Lamar has more weight in Compton at that time than The Game or anybody. I mean, The Game grew up there and Kendrick grew up there. Like, what, you guys own the block? Like, come on. You know, it's like, it's ridiculous, you know? So Kendrick felt a way about that. And that's what kind of sparked everything off. And The Game, upon hearing that, said, well, why didn't they tell me that around that time? Why didn't Top Dog holla at me or holla at Whack? Tell me about that. They just felt a way about it and kept it inside. This is how the music industry works, guys. This isn't just Kendrick in the West Coast. This is how rappers operate. Oh, and I didn't like how you did that. And then they get in their feelings. They don't tell anybody, but they just don't mess with you no more. Now, I'll tell you one thing about Game. I've worked with him before, and he's bipolar. He'll tell you one thing and do another thing. I worked with him on some video or something, and then I talked to him, and I was like, hey, you know, we had a mutual respect at that time, okay? And I said, hey, you have a song with the Jacka and Mr. Fab. We should do that video. You know, I'm cool with both of them, but let's get you in the video, right? He says, yo, I'm gonna be in the Bay Area next week. Let's do it. So I told Jackie and Mr. Fab, and The Game flaked on the whole thing, okay? I should have just told Game. I wasn't thinking. I should have just told Game, yo, let's shoot it in your hood now. Then I would have had the footage, you know? And then I could have just put Jacka and Mr. Fab's parts together and dropped it. It's a great song. It's a great song. It would have been awesome for Jacka and Mr. Fab. It would have put them in another level, you know, at that time. And I've heard a lot of people have these issues with The Game. I mean, you know, he had bipolar issues with 50 Cent. So let's get to that. So let's talk about The Game carrying the torch for the West Coast. 2003-04, Game arrives on the scene with 50 Cent. Okay, before that he had dropped albums with JT the Bigger Figure. He had little albums out, but this was like, then he signed to Dr. Dre, and Dre was about to drop him because there was no momentum, right? So Dre had him signed to G Unit through him, and 50 Cent co-signed him. They built the album up, and they built up buzz with the G Unit mixtapes, and The Game sold millions the first week. He sold like 1 million the first week and kept going. I think he sold like 7 million or 8 million to the documentary album. And eventually he had his beef with 50 Cent. That was his plan from the beginning. And he wasn't going to follow G Unit orders and not work with Nas and Fat Joe and them. So because they 50 Cent had beef with them. So it became a problem. The Game got dropped and moved over to Geffen, okay? But he still was dropping great albums, okay? So he was carrying the West Coast, let's say, from 2003-4 up until 2010-11 when Kendrick and everybody else started coming out. J-Rock attempted to come out in 2008. It didn't really stick until, like, Kendrick came out. He was, like, the first one out from TDE. I worked with J-Rock. So this all ties in, okay? So Kendrick comes out. Kendrick's around. J-Rock's around. Now, around this time, the West Coast is weird, okay? So I used to work with Nipsey. I did a lot of videos with Nipsey, and I'd be like, yo, they've been in studio together, right? So I was like, yo, let's shoot videos for the J-Rock and Nipsey song. They would not shoot the video. They wouldn't shoot it. And I don't know why I didn't push the issue in my mind. Like, I could have just got their parts separately and put it together. But for that, I wasn't, because it wasn't a big of a draw back then, Like, it would have meant something today. But back then, it was like, whatever, I'm not going to push the issue on this because, that's the kind of stuff I would think about doing with, like, a Lil Wayne and somebody else. Like, just get their part while you got them, These guys were more accessible at that time, so I didn't really trip on it. But I should have just I should have always just got the part right away and just had it, I usually do that, But they would not shoot the video together, okay? And then you're thinking, like, okay. And then The Game shot a video that they're saying, TDE saying, oh, but Game shot a video with J-Rock and he wouldn't show his face. He zipped up his hoodie the whole video. And then he shot a video with Hurricane Chris the next week and showed his face. I was like, bro, these guys are like tit for tat. They look at everything, And that must be some politics. Like, oh, maybe J-Rock had beef for this person and Game didn't want to show using. I don't know. It's like stupid. But anyways, Game did co-sign all these people. He worked with all of them. He worked with Nipsey. He worked with J-Rock. He worked with Kendrick before they were anything. And The Game didn't have an issue prior to him doing a song with Drake and bringing him to Compton. Kendrick Lamar violated then because he did a song with 50 Cent, who is Game's op, and they shot it in L.A. But you're in a video with 50 Cent, and later you did Power, but first you did this We Up video. That's a violation, right? So then TDE, Top Dog's whole argument is thrown out the window at that point. And I don't get these industry dudes. I don't care how gangster any of these people are. They all have these feminine issues. That's what it is to me. It is to me. It was so hard doing videos all the time because everybody had these little issues. I don't mess with him because he didn't do this. Or bro, the whole game is about saying yes to someone's face, and then you. I mean, this is how they do it in the music industry. They'll say yes, they're going to do it. You're like, yes, you told me he's going to do it, and you'll never hear from that person again, unless you get it right there in the spot, or within a week from talking to him. You're never going to get it. It's a fact. It's just how the industry works. So then, so the game didn't have an issue with that, and that's what he said to Stat Quo. He said, I don't understand why they had an issue with Drake. They weren't even really publicly beefing at the time, and I didn't know they felt away. They never told me. But Kendrick worked with 50 Cent before that on the We Up video, and then later he put him in Power. And I had no issue with it. But, you know, that people will just move the goalposts for their argument all the time. All the time. And don't forget, The Game was a part of this. Remember this whole emotional thing that happened on stage where they passed the torch to Kendrick early, too. Within, like, one album, they were like, pass the torch to Kendrick. Like, Dre, Corrupt, Snoop, J-Rock. Everybody was on stage like, yo, it's you now, man. It's you. Then he dropped the Butterflies album. You know, it's like, so they like hyped it up, bro. The Game was the first big artist that I saw that did a video with Kendrick Lamar. So, I don't know, man. This whole thing is so stupid and petty. And when you find out, like, how all this stuff originated, you see how corny the music business is. It's so trash. Look at these little quarrels. I don't even know what to title this video. I don't know, man. But anyways, I guess that... And now they all shun Game. Like, he didn't keep the West Coast alive from 2003. And I mean commercially. 2003 to 2010, 11. He did. On his own. Okay? So, people need to give him some credit. Okay? He does plenty of stuff to make fun of. But he does deserve credit where credit's due. He's not trash, you know? So... Anyways, and you know, he worked with Nipsey. He didn't pick sides. He worked with Nipsey. He worked with Jay. It wasn't like a blood Crip thing. He worked with Kendrick. You know, I think he even worked with Schoolboy Q. I'm not sure if he did or not, but like he worked with a lot of up and coming artists and gave him a shot when he didn't have to. All right. Anyways. This is Jordan Tower with JT News. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. I'll check you guys next one. Make sure you hit that hype button. Peace.